those are actually two different pictures that I had done that.
Very clever.
Okay, so our entrepreneurial workshop would help with these international things as well. It was a place in the school where anybody that had an idea, we didn't care what it was, and they wanted to do something. We just had a team there, and we'd help them. Put on conferences for the PCT. We had some powerful ones. We had the Food and Drug Administrator there talking about whether there should be regulation of medical devices as distinguished from drugs. We had copyright conference. The law school really broke the back of the debate in copyright where publishers couldn't agree with movie producers and so forth. And I recall a Register of Copyright saying, Franklin Pierce, where have you been all our life? It's quoted in the records there. We were able with the students to explore things that later were accepted. And of course, copyright is international. It isn't just an American monopoly, so to speak. And this infusion of people from abroad and the willingness to work together, and I'm ahead of the story, but I want to paint the picture for you, why I was so excited at one time about this. He even took Bob Shaw and Brian Harris and me to London to negotiate with Oxford University for cooperative programs. And we were going to start a first one on something that was brand new then, areas of product liability, and limitations on product liability, recoveries and things of this sort. And unfortunately, the fellow at Oxford kind of backed out of it. And we really didn't get the support at the Law Center that Bob and Brian and I thought we were going to get, and so we never pursued it any further. But Bob and I went to the Orient after we had substantial MIP courses and started organizing alumni groups. And we had alumni meetings in Taiwan, and for that we brought in the old folks who had come long before there was an MIP that I told you about. And they're more mature people. Half the trademark office in Taiwan at one time were people who had been to the Law Center, not in the MIP program, but interfacing. And now we have a good number of MIP people that are operating that office and the patent office. In Korea, we had some wonderful two nights, I think, of meetings. Bob Shaw and I were there, including the former Commissioner of Patents, who was one of our MIP students. And again, he didn't fit the mold of the MIP course. First of all, he was the Commissioner of Patents, He should be going to school with people that, including some Korean students that certainly weren't as far advanced as he. It was very difficult for me to persuade Bob Viles that he should be given a special course in MIP. Let him do the things that he was interested in. So he was coming for an experience, and this was more important, including the future political side of this, than that he do the same courses that everybody else was doing for the MIP. And Homo was a strong ally on this, and Bob gave in on that. And we did indeed find ourselves flexible enough to have special curricula as well as the ordinary one for the general MIP people. And we met in Japan with our Japanese associates, and there I'd had a much longer tenure, having filed cases since the last war there, and grown up with the new generation of patent attorneys and their association. And Joanne and I were planning to just have a social one last April in Japan, but it fell through because some of the key people were here in the United States, which of course is what the Chinese do. They don't want to go back. And fortunately some of them still do, but when they see the life here, China hasn't yet made attractive enough positions for them to go back. And the big thing that Hennessy is doing, of course, is formalizing in the way that it should be these individual relationships that were pioneered in these days as exchanges between the government and the university complexes in China. So, we come full swing, except for this entrepreneurial workshop helping with what we call the PACT program, which was offering to help Chinese inventors at different universities with some help on getting their U.S. patents for a piece of the action, and using Law Center students, particularly the Chinese students at the MIP, to work on these patent applications as they're being prosecuted in my office before the United States Patent Office. So we had dreamed of a laboratory and created kind of a laboratory where our students were helping Bob Shaw and me with inventions that we were doing for professors in Dartmouth, professors at Carnegie Mellon, some professors at MIT, professors at the University of Massachusetts, with a piece of the action on royalties and things of this sort, inuring to us at the institution should they be successful in licensing their inventions. And particularly with the Chinese, we represented a number of Chinese universities and agencies in this PACT program. People from Batal Materials Institute who were in oil well drilling equipment, people from Tsinghua University with atomic densitometer equipments, with laser equipments, and we got them the United States patents. When I say we, you're looking at the we, because students come and go, and while they were prepared to maybe give us a few weeks working on an application, then when they had to study for the bar, or then when they did something else, well, the case is back in the lawyer's hands, who has the ultimate responsibility. But I'm sorry John isn't here to hear this, but I'd like to have him see this part. But our PACT program, through Rines and Rines, Bob Shaw, we staked the Chinese and 4 American universities here to 100 patents from 1985 until 94. The batting average isn't tremendously great. It isn't anywhere in terms of trying to license inventions. My wife, who publishes Inventor's Digest, has certainly tracked these invention promoting companies that say they're going to help you license. And their record isn't even a fraction of a % of success. So it's a very difficult thing. But having said that, I envisaged that the Law Center would be this kind of an academic, I wouldn't use the word law firm, but an academic facilitator and assister to other institutions in other parts of the world who are trying to protect and license their intellectual property, and that this could develop into an academic, quote, business, unquote, that could have nothing but wonderful relationships and growth, and provide the students with a real laboratory. They're not working on fake things. They're not working on assigned problems. They're working on a real problem. And of course, I got turned off when I started bringing some of my students down here in the early days when I was still accepting court cases, to work with me on cases and to be with me in court in the Federal District Court here in Massachusetts on several patent suits, and to work with me on depositions and things. And then what do I get? I get the accreditation people saying, this doesn't look right. You're using this cheap help, for your own law firm benefit. And so I told them in a few choice words that they didn't have to worry about it in the future. If they wanted to shut off the God-given, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity I was giving some of these students at the law center, that shows their shallowness. But I'm not going to fight with them because I don't intend to be with them very much longer. At any rate, that was the dream of internships and a real working laboratory at the law center, particularly working on the inventions and licensing problems of inventors from sister universities in different parts of the country and world. And that's what Bob Shaw and I were promoting. And that's what we were even still promoting when Joanne and I went to South Africa to meet with Mandela at his request to see whether some of our affirmative action programs interesting poor black kids and other underrepresented kids in this country, interesting them in science. We have a program with the Army Research Office and 60 universities help us put on every year to offer apprenticeships to these people and get them interested, get them even interested in college. And it's one heck of a batting average. 95% of these folks going to college and over 85% taking substantial coursework in math, in science, engineering, business, technical business, and so forth. Well, Joanne and I went, therefore, to meet with Mandela and his cabinet and to see whether that kind of a program could work in South Africa. For various reasons, another chapter, we concluded it couldn't work. But I came back, having extended invitations to the professors at the different places that come to the law center. And let's talk about working together. Let's talk about problems of apartheid. Let's talk about, because we got people at the law school that are interested in human rights and those kind of areas. Remember, I brought the first president of Bangladesh for several months as a visiting professor to the law center. And he certainly interfaced with the faculty and the students and loved it, and they loved it. And this was part of my dream. When I come back, of course, and I'm all set, having given all these invitations to professors to come and exchange. And of course, I was met with a revolution of most of the faculty believing that I should resign as chairman. That I guess the gravamen was that I was drawing a stipend as chairman, and that I outlived my usefulness. So when I went bursting into Bob Weil's office with this excitement, and with a mandate from Mandela's office, and the idea of these folks were coming to talk to us, these other professors, it just was kind of the last straw to me that the law center would go the directions that I thought could have made it and may still make it a very great institution, but one of action, not just a place you learn. It's one where you're doing things and doing things in the real world, and the real world will come to you, because there's nobody that's serving that catalytic purpose right now. And it just needs a catalytic leader, and there isn't another educator I've met anywhere. I don't mean to generalize, but I have to. Who would even know what I'm talking about? So indeed, the history of how we got around the world, and could still, if one wanted to be an international catalyst of that character in some particular area, is what I dream that institutions should be to fulfill the destiny that really they can fulfill, which is not teaching alone, and certainly not classroom teaching, and certainly not theoretical teaching. You could be doing things in the world, like that PAC program. Okay, we came to a point, therefore, where I no longer had the interest in the directions that the law school was going to take, particularly where they were not along the directions that I had been planning. And so I did not stand for a second term as chairman of the board, but I retired totally, and started to go back now and build up the Academy of Applied Science, and what might still be pertinent to these areas that I'm talking about, we're trying to do through that particular mechanism. Now, having said that, it's too bad. Joanne came with me when the Prime Minister of Bangladesh gave me an award at one of the other universities here. I don't know, it was Tufts or where it was, for assisting in the freedom movement in Bangladesh. And we went to Boston University and had dinner with her again, and her Secretary of State, whom I knew when he was that big, and used to be a pat on the head when I'd visit the president in Bangladesh at that time, Kaiser. And it was a thrilling thing, and I'm glad that Joanne was able to share, as Carol did, in the thrill of the fact that people who have a concern for the world, they can do things. You don't have to be President of the United States. You don't have to be the Prime Minister of England. There are things you can do that they never could touch. And you do it on a people-to-people basis. And you do it even within the political environment. You don't have to be a congressman to have power. You don't have to be a politician to get the ear of politicians in other countries and get them to do things with you. And I always saw that as a role of the Franklin Pierce Law Center as the only candidate in the world, not the Max Planck Institute, God, they're in a box, or anything else I know of, where particularly take an area like intellectual property, which is the brains of the future. These are the ideas. This is where the world's going. And if you could be the recognized center where people want to come and talk about the forefront, questions like, should we have patents in certain areas? I mean, because we should have had it in 1790 doesn't mean we need it today. The Supreme Court, in a big turnaround, has said anything in the world under the sun that man does is patentable. Well, that may be okay for a lawyer. That's a stupid statement, because that ignores the public policy of what do the people want. Do you want patents for genetic engineering of human parts? Do we want patents for genetically modified mice, important as they might be? We the people have got to make those public policy decisions. Damn it, it's not the lawyers, because intellectually, and the ones on the Supreme Court are just lawyers in robes. Who the heck are they to make the policy for a lazy people who don't want to make their own decisions and set the course of their own life? And we're the greatest in the world. If we're lazy, who needs a patent? The big corporations in many fields don't even use them for their exclusive privileges. Then why give them to them? Why not give them what they need? Little guys need different patents than the big guys do. One law doesn't fit all. That's what the Law Center should be talking about. It should be dreaming about the future. And it can't do it alone. Because when it does it, it's got to be talking to the Brits and the Germans and the Chinese now. Watch the Chinese. I may not live to see it. I hope I will. But I promise you, you will. Well, you know who's going to be number one in the world? Economically? Intellectually? It's not going to be a society where 29% only of our fourth graders show any proficiency in science. And where 18% of our high school seniors show proficiency in science. And where we're number 11 out of 16 in the world in our mathematics competitions with young people. And you want to sit there and have a bloodless war. Who the hell invented these things that you can have the bloodless war? And today, those same companies that did these inventions, of course, many of them independent inventors, but these same companies who did it, where are they going for their trained technological people today? Not the United States schools. We're up to 200,000 visas now extended for foreign help because our technological companies cannot find trained people coming out of our colleges and our high schools. 200,000 jobs. You're complaining we lost 1 million jobs? 200,000 of them have gone to foreigners because we aren't competent. And that's what I thought. PAC program, a laboratory. Our Chinese students were working on Chinese cases. And then, of course, after this cold shoulder happened, we negotiated the separation of the academy and the law center. Okay? And where the academy had put all its endowment into the law center, I've had to now start from scratch all over again. And we didn't negotiate anything about that. We were glad to get loose. But the decision was made that this PAC program of helping other universities with inventions and using students to working on those cases and getting this cross-fertilization, well, I'll tell you. The day after we decided to part and the agreements were signed, with our friend Brian Harris acting as the middleman at that time in the negotiations, and Morgan Hollis, one of our graduates. I guess within a week later, our first royalty of over $250,000 came in from one client as our share in the PAC program. Well, unfortunately, the Law Center didn't see it. And I'm proud. I'm proud of the Law Center. I'm proud of what went on. We started from our first graduation on. It's been a wonderful experience. But the dream of being an active organization that's steeped into the real workings of society with our academics now, I understand, in being involved in with other institutions in the organizations of legal education and so forth. But where are they in the American Intellectual Property Association? Where are they in the World Intellectual Property Organization? These people are not performing a mission that I've ever dreamed about, just teaching something. They're in a place where they have all kinds of students that can do research, they can dream, they can discuss, they can critically analyze, they can bring in other people to do it with them, they can change the world. And it has to be changed. We're dinosaurs. We're not matched in the law at all to the needs of today's society or its technological development. We're using dinosaur concepts and dinosaur ideas to treat with a society that has gone way beyond us in terms of needing guidance, and needing new public policy. And if the best we can do as a lawyer is to teach them the doctrine of stare decisis, in a world where nearly all the conditions have changed, all the fundamentals have changed, and a country that doesn't think enough of its judicial system to even train people for that profession. You can see that the miracle of America is it's still here. And it's still so good. But you've got to think of what it could be. And that's a new role I see. When I teach at MIT, I know what I'm doing. I don't know any teacher knows what they're doing. But if a student stops in the middle of a class and says, what about this? I'm the kind of guy that says, put the course in the wastebasket. Kids are interested in this. Let's go. That becomes the project for the term. This teaching. Anybody can get the cookbook. But you've got to get to those fundamentals. And that hands-on stuff that we were bringing with the PAC program. You know, I still have those Chinese students come. The other day, Liang, my first Chinese student under the MIP program came. They won't let go. And they're doing all kinds of creative things. They shouldn't be coming to me. There should be stuff at the law school going on. It's not only inviting them, but challenging them. And these are the people who could be of great influence because it's there for the taking. There's nobody that's influencing where our patent system's going to go or where our international relations. There's nobody. Nobody at all. It's there for the taking. And there's no school. And now with the prestige that the Law Center has, what an opportunity for it to start molding the world. At least raising the questions about all these things that we take for granted, are they any longer relevant? So, you see our graduates going out. I see them from all time to time. I love what's going on in China. Dean Hudson was there, and Hennessy is there. And it's a marvelous thing, but what's it doing for the Law Center? What's it really doing? And I think the Law Center has a mission to change the world. I think it has the mission to be on top of raising the questions of what's tomorrow going to be. Anybody can teach what's today. What should it be? Developing public policy. Analyzing. We got such fantastic things to wrestle with today that we never had before. It's not just simple anymore. And we've got to learn to balance things. Nobody balances in this world. There's no such thing as guilty and not guilty. All kinds of shades of gray that can be in there. And there can be things that are both this and both that. Just because the law says it has to be this and this is crazy. That's not the real world. When it's some of this and some of that. We're not relating the law to the real world. And we're certainly not servicing the needs of the real world. Just yesterday, this last week, I was a witness in the court in Massachusetts. In New Hampshire, Superior Court in New Hampshire. I was a fact witness for a client of mine. Well, they couldn't tell me when to come. Well, it might be this and it might be that. And it might be this day and it might be that day. Because the great judge is so busy with all these things, you know. The biggest thing that Dean Simpson ever did in teaching our kids was, if you want justice, go to church. Now, I'm not sure you'll get it there. Don't go to law. Law is not justice. Law is law. Not justice. It certainly isn't what a kindergarten kid will tell you justice ought to be. You know, how many cases in my life I haven't been able to prove the truth because of the rules of evidence, unquote. Created for an entirely different period of time when jurors were ignorant and could be unduly influenced. But today, particularly in my area of technology, still in force, this time for the judges that are ignorant. You haven't even come to the point of recognizing that when we tell a federal judge, you're going to rule on all this different subject matter, and they don't know beans about half of it, when are we going to wake up? When are we going to wake up? That's what I see for the law center. To study it. You don't have to be antagonistic. These are the things. Our courts are not qualified to pass on all subject matter. And then you've got to weigh that against the economics of these situations. Who the heck can afford litigation? These wonderful problems coming up now with about the death penalty, about how many people have missed the mark. Well, what percentage of accuracy has a witness got? You tell me. Certainly not even 25%. And we're administering rules of law down to the first and second decimal place on data that isn't accurate to 25 or 50%. I myself, the other day as a witness, didn't remember something. It's the best we know how to do. But we can be taught how to do it better. But not unless we study it. Lawyers aren't going to agree that sociologists and scientists and other people should be in helping them change their system to make it more relevant and more matched to the needs of society, particularly a technologically runaway society. They're not going to do it. Somebody's got to do it. And it's starting to come, and you can see it. You can see the opinion of lawyers that the public is taking, and it's correct. 90% of what lawyers do, I call high school work. And the thinking that they should be doing, and the counseling, they're supposed to be counselors. How many lawyers you know are counselors? We're playing games, guys. And we're suffering. And I had always hoped that the law center would be that catalyst that would maybe not know all the answers, expose these things, not to be nasty, because that's the first step to making progress in this world, to modernizing. Everything's modernizing, faster and faster, except the law, which is a dinosaur. So all I can say is this is a little bit of a background of the high points. The door is still open in the rest of the world, and Hennessy's keeping it open. But we've got to lead them. They'll never lead. They're so far behind us. Any concept you want, even Great Britain, they're just so far behind us. They aren't even in the same league as the Americans, or the American legal system, or the American legal concerns. And having said that, don't puff up, because they are still in the dinosaur. We, in the dinosaur age. So, I suppose that will terminate this. You'll have to look at the memoirs for the rest of the stories.